morning again, everyone. I think I forgot to mention this as we went around at the beginning, but Jonathan Ballin, one of our directors, got a hold of us late yesterday, and something at work came up, and he wishes he could be here, but he had this last-minute conflict, and he really couldn't, so he sends his regrets. Alex, why don't you get us started? And I guess you need to, well, you may do another round of introductions.
I'll just do it very quickly here. So as with the committee meetings, we have a number of board members and others participating in the meeting via video. Jesse Olsak, Linda Baldwin are in Albany. Linda Manley, our general counsel, is in our Albany office. Andy Sanfilippo for TSFC and MBBA is in Buffalo. B. Gonzalez for SONYMA is in Syracuse. So notices were posted for all those meetings. I'm going to ask for a motion and a second to call to order the June 13, 2019 meetings of HFA, SONYMA, AHC, MBBA, TSFC, the Mortgage Insurance Committee of SONYMA, and the HFA Finance and Program Committee. Can I have a motion for HFA and AHC?
So moved.
Second.
A motion for SONYMA?
So moved.
A motion for MBBA and TSFC?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
A motion for the Mortgage Insurance Committee of SONYMA?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
A motion for the HFA Finance and Program?
So, yes. So moved.
And Jesse?
Second.
Whatever you need.
All right. As items are presented to each board throughout today's meetings, these motions and seconds will be used unless specific items call for a different vote or unless any board member or director wishes to record his or her vote differently.
Let's say good morning to Ruth Ann and welcome her monthly President's Report. Ruth Ann.
Thank you and good morning. I was actually not here last month, so it's sort of my bi-monthly because I'm not going to meet in. Do we meet in July? Oh, we do meet in July, but I'm not here in July because they scheduled my vacation. So I'm going on a bi-monthly schedule now. So
all right.
I'll have more to say each time.
Give a big report at the August meeting, all right?
Yes, I will, by myself in this room. This morning, the SONYMA and HFA boards will consider financing and insurance for projects representing 1,179 units of affordable housing located in Queens, Kings, Erie, Bronx, and Westchester counties. And at AHC, we'll be reporting new awards of nearly $8 million for the construction of 238 units of affordable housing in counties across the state. We also have various consent, informational, and administrative items for the board's consideration. A lot has happened in the last 2 months.
2 days.
I'm going to skip over the many events and just touch on a couple, the many groundbreakings and ribbon cuttings because there are a couple other things that I was going to touch on. So I was not here on the May 9th board because I was testifying at the New York State Assembly rent hearing. And I missed you all then. And later in the month, on May 28th, I also testified at the Senate hearing on rent stabilization, and they had several hearings, both the Assembly and the Senate. And the Assembly one I did in Albany, and the Senate one I actually did in Greenburgh, up in Westchester County. We also met with Assembly members on a manufactured homes bill that we were interested in seeing as we talk a bit about manufactured home work here, and we're talking to them about some legislative changes. We have also been working with the Senate and the Assembly on what are called our departmentals, which are bills that are sort of technical changes to our statute, and those are sort of in process. Other things that are going on besides rent, which I will conclude with at the end of my comments. We went in early June to talk to the Assembly and Senate staff about Vital Brooklyn. So as many of you may remember, as part of the Governor's Vital Brooklyn initiative, there are a series of state-controlled sites that HDR issued RFPs for developers to respond to take ownership and develop these sites for affordable housing. It's very exciting. HDR has not done RFPs specifically for affordable housing ever in the past. It's a new thing for us, and thousands of units of housing are now going to be built on state-owned land through HDR, which is great. So we have a first round of RFPs, first couple sites that came in that we are reviewing, and then we have sort of waves of RFPs coming in over the next month or so. And then you will see, starting at the end of the summer, awards for those getting made, and then eventually you will see all those here at this meeting. So it's great. We're really, Vital Brooklyn is the staff is doing a wonderful job. Liz Bieber and Gabriella Green, who are both here, are leading that effort, and Chelsea Muller, and are doing a great job. Monday, we did a ribbon cutting for Ocean Bay. So as many of you may remember, Ocean Bay was the first RAD project that New York City Housing Authority did. It was 1,400 units out in Far Rockaway. It was really an incredible transformation. I often say this thing, although now I'm a little stale on getting my numbers right, but it was about a $400 or $500 million project. NYCHA's capital budget for the year is probably in the range of about $300 million. So to be able to, for their entire 175,000 unit portfolio, so to be able to put about that amount of money into one 1,400 unit development was sort of goes without saying is extremely transformative, both inside the apartments, the infrastructure of the buildings, and also a lot of the external infrastructure in the of that complex. It was also a project that was hit very, very hard by Sandy, and it had a lot of, like maybe $100 million of that might have been FEMA money that went in to do barriers and berms and things to help keep the water out when the water comes in, help it get absorbed. Really incredible infrastructure that will help them in the long run, so that's really exciting. Also this week, the governor announced, I think maybe a week or two ago, the Lake Ontario Resilient Economic Development Initiative. As many people may or may not know, Lake Ontario is at record high water levels, and it is causing flooding along the 400 miles of shoreline that abut it. This happened in 2017, and HDR managed a program of $70+ million that was grants to homeowners and to municipalities to both fix homes and also do some infrastructure, seawalls and stuff like that in front of homes. But here we are 2 years later, and the lake is flooding again. So the governor announced we can't keep doing this every 2 years. This is not sort of happening here or there. This is, as everyone sort of says, our new normal. The lake is rising. And so he has charged a series of commissioners, myself included, to between now and basically Labor Day, be up in, we are each sort of assigned a county, and to be up in that county working with local elected officials on what are the strategic resilient investments that need to be made in these communities, both on resiliency but also on the economy, because a lot of these places are very seasonal. And when they get things like floods, marinas and restaurants that get flooded that can't operate, if they're closed for part of the season, it's, they're sort of, the way we talk about tenants being kind of one health emergency away from on rent is not dissimilar for a lot of small businesses that are seasonal up there. So it's important to make sure that that there are infrastructure and resilient improvements made, both sort of physically but also in the economic vitality of that area. And it is a wonderful part of New York State up there, obviously. So we were in Rochester on Monday, Betsy, Chelsea, and a bunch of other staff to start the first of what's going to be 4 meetings up in that area that will result in this sort of report that comes out in the fall. And the governor has committed, Jesse's probably twitching a little bit, $200 million to go towards the investments there. So it's great. It's really a very, very smart effort. We are very proud to be part of that. And so more to come on that. And lastly, because I've gone on so long, I will be very brief. As many people saw on Tuesday night, and this has been an extremely long past 10 days, on Tuesday night, the Senate and the Assembly put forth a rent stabilization bill that is now aging for 3 days and will become the new law as of Saturday, when the rent laws would have expired. The rent laws get renewed previously had gotten renewed every 4 years. It's an extremely extensive and comprehensive and strengthens the rent laws really comprehensively. We are still sort of reviewing and digesting all that's in that bill, as are many other people inside and outside government. It did things like eliminate the vacancy increase. It modified IIs and MCIs. It took away the decontrol threshold. Lots of things that had been sort of much in the public discussion about the change ended up in the bill.
Makes the law permanent, right?
It makes the law permanent. So it will be voted on, I think, by the Assembly Housing Committee today and the Senate thereafter, and will reach the governor's desk. So it's certainly a busy time in housing across the board and for HDR. And with that, I will turn it back to you.
Ruth Ann, thank you. Anyone have any questions for Ruth Ann on her President's report? There's a lot there and a lot going on, and thanks for bringing us up to date.
Great.
Alex, we've got to take care of the minutes, I think. Will you help us?
Well, before we do that, we'll do the committee actions. So a little earlier this morning, the audit committees met and adopted their minutes. The Sonny May Committee adopted a resolution approving an ORE audit. AHC received a presentation on the AHC financials and adopted a resolution approving it. I'm recommending the approval of the board. The HFA and Sonny May committees reviewed and approved the independent auditor's schedule of expenditures federal award. HFA and Sonny May reviewed the Ernst & Young contract, and the HFA committee approved the mortgage billing system audit. The governance committees also met. They adopted their minutes, and the committee reviewed the Radian contract and approved the continuation of the contract with one of our consultants, George Leopold. And now we'll move to item 1, approval of the minutes. The minutes of the meeting of the board meetings held on May 11th, 2019 shall be deemed approved, absent corrections from the members.
Just, I abstained because I wasn't here on May 9th.
Okay. Got it.
All right, now we're going to make a change to the agenda because we're going to, is this where we're going to do executive session, my friends?
Yeah, we're going to skip that for later.
We're going to skip, there's item number 2, we're going to hold, come back to it later on at the end of the meeting, and take care of some consent items. Should we do that, Alex? Is that next?
Yep.
And so there's no discussion on the consent items unless board members so request. So we'll hold off on item 2 and move ahead to item 3, which is a resolution reviewing and approving an independent auditor's report relating to the audit of the schedule of expenditures of the federal awards, single audit.
Right. This was taken up by the audit committee earlier, so assuming that there are no comments from the board members, before the HFA and Sonny May boards is a resolution of HFA and Sonny May reviewing and approving the audited schedule of expenditures and federal awards single audit report for the fiscal year ended October 31, 2018. Assuming the first and seconds previously entered for HFA and Sonny May, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried. The resolution is adopted.
Thank you, Alex. Item 4 is an approval of the annual AHC Paris procurement report for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2019, and review of the agency's quarterly procurement report for the period ending April 30th, 2019.
Right. So these materials are in the book, and the procurement report will be part of the Paris filing by AHC. So AHC needs to approve that. Now before the AHC board is a resolution of AHC approving the annual procurement report for the period ending March 31st, 2019. Assuming the first and seconds previously entered for AHC, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. The resolution adopted.
Thank you. Item 5 is approval of AHC annual investment report for the period ending March 31st, 2019, and also a review of the second quarterly 2019 investment reports for the period ending April 30th, 2019 for HFA, Sonny May, MBBA, and TSFC.
Okay, so again, this is AHC for the Paris filing for the year and the standard quarterly investment report that involves all the other agencies. So now before all the boards is a resolution of HFA, Sonny May, AHC, MBBA, and Tobacco approving reports of investments, assuming the first and seconds previously entered for all the agencies. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Thank you, Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
Motion is carried. The resolution adopted.
Next item on the agenda is an information item. There'll be no discussion unless board members or directors so request. It's item 6. It's the current agency procurements in the lobbying restricted period. The next item is also an information item. Board members received a report on this item by separate cover, and Wanda Graham is going to be making a presentation to go over this item. Thank you very much, Wanda. Good morning.
Good morning.
And just to note, the presentation that Wanda is referring is in the members' folders here.
Yeah, at least folks here have printouts.
Okay, good morning.
Morning. And can everyone connected to us remotely hear Wanda clearly? This is, I think so. Anyone need a copy?
Got one.
Okay.
Yep.
So the Office of Economic Opportunity and Partnership Development has developed and led a very robust MWBE program. We've created and continue to maintain an MWBE database of over 800 firms. HCR has exceeded the governor's overall 30% goal for the last 2 years. And for this fiscal year, HCR is on track for another great year of utilization. The next two slides in the PowerPoint shows MWBE utilization trends over an 8-year period. You'll see we broke it out for overall procurement, development, and bond-related costs. And I'd like to thank my colleagues in the various units, because without their support, the agency would not realize this type of success.
And without your pushing, they wouldn't have done.
Sure. So you see, for fiscal year 2018-19, we achieved an overall almost 35%. The next slide gives you a line graph, which is a better visual for the utilization and the achievement. However, with the success we've achieved in construction-related contracts, we realized that we could do a lot more. So in 2014, my office did a survey of developers to solicit ideas on how to increase minority developer participation on HCR projects, and to understand the barriers that they face in seeking financing for the proposed projects. In the survey, several items were listed, such as lack of capital, startup funds, inability to secure a sufficient line of credit, lack of insurance, and lack of bonding. As a result of this survey, my office decided to engage a consultant to further understand the issues. So in 2017, we issued a request for bid and statement of qualifications for technical assistance and consultant services to help grow the MWBE program here at HCR. In 2018, the board approved a contract to hire the K-Mite Group, and I'd like to acknowledge David K-Mite and Liz Duncan Gilmore, principals of the consultant firm that's here today with me. So today we're excited to present our recommendations from the study and some next steps. So at HDR SWOT Analysis, we say there are strengths because we're a leader in affordable housing development. There's great opportunity because the governor pushes to increase affordable housing in all areas. But there's weaknesses because there's unbonded MWBE contractors, barriers to entry, and that's why a technical assistance program would be very helpful. Without this, and no goals for MWBE developers, there's a threat of lack of education and perceived exclusion to our programs. So, HCR proposed expansion MWBE program. The study provided two primary suggestions for further review: providing a technical assistance program and creating a loan fund. The benefits to both would be putting HCR as a leader, innovative leader in diversity, positive community impact, changing the landscape for minority developers and contractors, increasing professional service participation, capturing more MWBE spend, more bidders, better pricing. MWBE firms tend to hire more MWBE firms and their workforce. All of this would boost local economies. So implementation is proposed in two phases. Phase one would be to create the technical assistance program. So through an RFP, my office would identify an organization or organizations to assist in coordinating and planning statewide technical assistance. Phase two, we would do further exploration on opportunities for a loan fund. So let's look at phase one and what it looks like. The program would offer 3 modules statewide to address barriers of entry for MWBE developers, contractors, and professional service providers. For MWBE developers, we're looking at low-hanging fruit programs where we feel they can easily access with the technical assistance. So we would provide a roadmap to entry for programs like our 9% program, OCR programs, AHC, our faith-based initiatives, and property and asset management. For minority contractors, we're looking to cultivate bondable contractors, so providing technical assistance for them to build capacity and help with their financial presentation, helping them to get bonding, bidding tools, anything that helps them grow capacity in working on our projects. The third part of phase one would be regional forums to continue our efforts to encourage statewide MWBE participation in professional services. what we see is a lot of projects come in, the professional service areas are generally already secured. So with team building, by introducing MWBE developers, contractors, and professional services to our HCR products, to our current developer pool, local municipalities, nonprofit organizations, prime contractors, we get more utilization for professional services. And if we think locally, by encouraging participation from local MWBE firms and hiring local workforce, again, increased workforce is just as important. Through mentorship, there's opportunities created between seasoned and new firms. Without these supported tools, we continue to perpetuate the stereotype that currently exists in a lot of the communities of color. Through proceeds from our liquidated damage fund is how we will plan to fund our technical assistance programs and outreach. I know that was probably a question everyone would have. How are you going to pay for it? So phase 2 is something I look to come back to you in probably a year, but that's to the opportunities of a loan fund. So we will continue to do our due diligence to understand how we can create a loan fund, and the technical assistance will provide a pipeline of developers and companies to go to access the loan fund. So we can't create a loan fund if we don't have the participants, so that technical assistance program will help us. So it's my hope, that, like I said, that I'll come back in a year to present a proposed loan fund, but we're looking to start out with a technical assistance program statewide. Questions?
Anyone else? You, Alex, you guys? I have a question, but wanted to thank you, and thank you to our friends from K-Mite for helping get this done. You mentioned the need for MWB contractors. This is especially in construction, not so much to get bonding. And as I recall, at DASNY, there was some capacity to do assistance with surety bonds.
Right.
And even at ESD, I think I don't know if it's still there, but a few years ago there was a program. So I'm just this is a suggestion/question. You know, as you develop a technical assistance program, what will you do to work with other state agencies like DASNY and ESD, who have strong MWBE programs in their lines of work, to you don't want to reinvent the wheel.
That's right.
You want to add value in some unique way, and also coordinate those resources, because maybe some of what's going on here is people being unaware of the resources or not able to access the surety bond fund at ESD or whatever. So again, how do we make sure in a government that can quickly become a bunch of silos all over the state, you're really leading this thing and you're pulling those resources together in a focused, transparent way for the participating businesses?
So to our benefit, the K-Mite group worked with DASNY in creating their surety bonding program. So I think along with the support from them and working closely with my office and Michael Clay, who's my counterpart, we will certainly do that to not duplicate efforts.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's great. We're really excited. We're excited to roll out the technical assistance. It will be a big effort, and we'll take a full bunch of staff internally to help give support to Wanda to do it. But we think it's going to be great.
When will we? So what are next steps in terms of what you're going to do in your work plan, and when will we get to hear some good news? Like when does it start to happen?
Mm-hmm. So the next step, we're currently drafting an RFP to issue, and I will be working with Lisa in our procurement unit, and she's got a long list of RFPs to issue, but we're hoping, by the fall we'll have an RFP out on the street to hire, to engage technical assistance providers, so that by the end of the year we can have responses in, and by 2020 start selecting them. So we're only 6 months away.
Right. Good. Other questions or comments from directors?
Really great you're doing
this. Is really, it's evidence, I think, Ruth Ann, and of the commitment the agency has to MWBE work, because you're not resting on your laurels. Not many state agencies exceed the 35% goal, right? And so to hit that goal and say we need to do more, and to focus on developers. Let's be clear, success here, Wanda, is not more people pouring concrete necessarily, right? It's really at the higher end of this, affordable housing development food chain. It's the developer community. That will really be success. But again, you're not sitting back and saying, oh, we hit the goal, let's, take it easy. You're moving forward and leveraging the success, and you should be commended for that.
Thank you. And I think the agency should be proud because we're not an agency like some of the others that do direct contracting. We're a financer.
Right,
So
right.
to hit these goals being a financer, I think is amazing.
Right. And very, very good point. It's not the same. You're not the Parks Department,
That's
as
right.
I like to say.
That's right.
They have it easy.
Yep. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Great.
All right. The next item is
So then we're going to go.
7.
Right.
And I think we're going to get Mike up, right? Yeah.
Yep.
We're now going to move to items on our agenda that are to be considered for mortgage insurance by the SONYMA Mortgage Insurance Committee. So we're going to item number 8 in your materials, which is a resolution approving 100% mortgage insurance on a $5,166,371 CPC permanent first mortgage loan for 161-01 89th Avenue in Queens. And Mike, good morning.
Good morning.
Got a lot of good projects for us today. Thank you. We look forward to it.
June 30th is the end of the city's fiscal year, so there are several HPD PLP projects on the agenda this morning. 161-01 89th Avenue in Jamaica is both an HPD PLP project and a city 9% tax credit project. And it comprises the development of 70 low-income units, of which 42 will be supportive housing units. There will be annual rent subsidies in the approximate amount of $545,000 through the New York City 1515 program, which will be administered by the City Human Resources Administration. The project is being developed by Transitional Services for New York, a not-for-profit founded in 1974 to facilitate the placement of residents of New York State psychiatric hospitals in community-based housing. The insured loan amount is $74,000 per unit, which equals approximately 17% of the total development cost of $435,000 per unit. And the project would break even with a pro forma 10% increase in operating expenses or a 17% residential vacancy rate.
Good. Any questions for Mike on this item?
Okay. So now before the Mortgage Insurance Committee for approval is a resolution of the committee approving mortgage insurance and a commitment for the provision thereof for 161-01 89th Avenue in Queens, Queens County. Assuming the first and seconds previously entered for the Mortgage Insurance Committee, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. The resolution adopted.
Great. Mike, don't go anywhere. Item 9, a resolution approving 100% mortgage insurance on a $3,183,445 CPC permanent first mortgage loan for 300-304 East 162nd Street in the Bronx.
This project comprises the mod rehab of 42 low-income units and the construction of 2 additional units. There are no tax credits, but pursuant to a regulatory agreement with HPD, all of the units will be reserved for tenants earning up to 60% of the New York City AMI of $104,000 per annum. The project is being developed by the Marinakis and Volandis families, experienced Bronx-based contractors and developers, and this will be the second loan we've insured for those entities. The insured loan amount is $72,000 per unit, which equals 58% of the project's total development cost of $124,000 per unit. The project would break even with a pro forma 10% residential vacancy rate or a 10% increase in operating expenses.
All right. Any questions for Mike on this project on 162nd Street?
Okay. Now before the committee is a resolution of the Mortgage Insurance Committee of SONYMA approving mortgage insurance and a commitment for the provision thereof for 300-304 East 162nd Street in the Bronx, Bronx County. Assuming the first and seconds previously entered for the committee, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. The resolution adopted.
Item 11 is a resolution approving an increase to a CPC permanent first mortgage loan.
No.
Whoa, sorry.
Yep.
I beg your pardon. I skipped. 10 is a resolution approving 100% mortgage insurance on a $3,600,000 JP Morgan Chase permanent first mortgage loan for 801 East 181st Street, also in the Bronx.
This is another project that is both an HPD PLP project and a city 9% tax credit project.
Participation loan program.
In addition to the insured first mortgage, there's a $4.6 million HPD subordinate loan, $10.2 million in federal low-income housing tax credits. The project will receive a 420C New York City real estate tax exemption. It comprises the construction of 30 low and moderate income units. Income eligibility ranges from 40 to 100% of the AMI, with rents set between 40 and 80% of the AMI. The project is being developed by an entity controlled by Bronx Pro, a prolific and well-regarded developer of affordable housing. And this will be the 9th loan that we have insured for entities controlled by Bronx Pro, with total exposure of $76.5 million. And the insured loan amount is $120,000 per unit, which equals 18% of the project's total development cost of $656,000 per unit.
Very good. Any questions for Mike on this? If not, Alex?
Now before the committee is a resolution of the Mortgage Insurance Committee of SONYMA approving mortgage insurance and a commitment for the provision thereof for 801 East 181st Street in the Bronx, Bronx County, assuming the first and second previously entered for the committee. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried. The resolution adopted.
So now we can go to 11, which is a resolution approving an increase to a CPC permanent first mortgage loan from $1,457,768 to $3,462,468 for 1890 Andrews Avenue, again in the Bronx. So this is something where it looks like the cost went up, right, Mike?
It did. Mortgage insurance was originally approved 4 years ago, and when they started the rehab of the building, they discovered that there was subsurface settlement. 4 years later, an extensive cost overruns of approximately $1.3 million in hard costs and $800,000 in soft costs, in part attributable to construction interest over the last 4 years. Consequently, HPD has restructured the rents, increasing the project's residential income from $480,000 a year to $689,000 per annum, and HPD will provide Section 8 vouchers to the tenants. There's also been an increase in commercial income from $140,000 per annum to $157,000 per annum, so that there is sufficient rental income to cover the $130,000 increase in debt service. And even with the increase in debt service, the project's income to expense ratio actually increases from 1.05 to 1.15.
Is the increase in rents mostly being absorbed by the Section 8 subsidies?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Mike, here's a question, just because you put this project out as an example. It's a question for Ruth Ann, which she's allowed to, or encouraged to only answer maybe partially. But in looking at the prospect of new, very new, significantly altered rent regulations in the state, one of the concerns people had going into this debate in Albany was the ability of landlords to make improvements over time, right? To have the resources available to make improvements to their, what was the capital improvement program, SIP? MCI. And so one looks at a building like this, and the other project before this, which was a rehab, and wonders. Now, I mean, it's too early to know, right? But I guess the concern is, or a question is, and for Ruth Ann as much as for you, moving forward, when the margins are so tight and the expense of maintaining buildings and doing these repairs in places like the Bronx keep rising, will the owners of nonprofit, nonprofit for-profit, but will the owners of these affordable housing facilities, still be able to maintain them? That's my blunt. Or is that something we're worried about?
Well, I think the subset of projects that we insure, as opposed to the overall universe of housing, tend to have capitalized reserves. So when the loan closes, there are often mortgage-funded, capitalized repair and replacement reserves.
Right.
And then there is an additional $250 or $350 per unit per annum to increase the amount of the reserve. So I think on our projects, probably there's some built-in
Reserves.
Right.
Right.
Capacity.
Right.
I mean, at a high level, it's sort of the crux of the rent stabilization system, right? How do you sort of maintain rents while also making sure people invest, making sure they invest not too little and not too much, and it's 1 million apartments and 40,000 buildings, and they're 6 units and 506 units, right? So it's a that's the crux, I think.
That's the crux. Well, I guess time will tell. We'll see.
Doesn't it effectively, at the end of the day, doesn't it have the effect of depressing the resale value of the properties? And that's where it's going to get absorbed.
We'll see. I guess this is all being explored. All right, interesting. Very good, Mike. Thanks. Alex, we got to do this one.
Okay, now before the committee is a resolution of the Mortgage Insurance Committee of SONYMA approving an increase to a J.P. Morgan Chase permanent first mortgage loan from $1,457,768 to $3,462,468 for 1890 Andrews Avenue in the Bronx. Assuming the first and second is previously entered for the committee, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried. The resolution adopted.
All right, we're now going to move to the item on our agenda that is to be considered for mortgage insurance by the State of New York Mortgage Agency Mortgage Insurance Committee and the SONYMA Board. This is item 12. Resolutions approving 50% mortgage insurance on a $64,335,000 HDC permanent first mortgage loan for Apex Place, Forest Hills in Queens. Yeah, we're out of the Bronx. Thank you, Mike.
Right. This was a neat project. It comprises the construction of 442 low and moderate income units, including 44 units for formerly homeless tenants. And the units are income restricted between 30 and 110% of the AMI, with rents set between 27 and 110% of the AMI. It's a very heavily subsidized project. In addition to the $64 million HDC first mortgage, there's a $15 million HDC second mortgage, and a $90 million HDC third mortgage, and $48 million in federal low-income housing tax credits. And the project will receive a 40-year Article 11 real estate tax abatement. It's being developed by Phipps Houses, which is the oldest and largest developer of not-for-profit housing, affordable housing in the city. And this will be the 9th loan that we've insured for entities controlled by Phipps, with a total loan amount of $89.5 million. The insured loan amount is $145,000 per unit, which equals 23% of the project's total development cost of $627,000 per unit.
Very good, and good to see projects by Phipps. They are. It's a great organization. Any questions for Mike on this project in Queens? Apex Place? If not, Alex?
Now before the Mortgage Insurance Committee and the SONYMA Board for approval are resolutions of the committee and of the board recommending and approving 50% mortgage insurance on a $64,035,000 HDC permanent first mortgage loan for Apex Place in Forest Hills, Queens County. Assuming the first and second is previously entered for the committee and the board, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion is carried. The resolution adopted.
Thank you. 13 is the resolution of the SONYMA Community Restoration Fund approving guidelines for the Community Restoration Fund's Distressed Borrowers Refinance Program. Mike, thank you, by the way. Yeah. Thank you.
Comes Rachel and her.
Hi, Rachel. Good morning.
Rachel and a half.
Rachel and a half. Yep.
Rachel and a half, exactly. Almost two, actually. Hi, my name is Rachel Weeder. We are seeking approval to adopt new guidelines in the SONYMA Community Restoration Fund. It's in order to launch a new pilot program in partnership with the Center for New York City Neighborhoods, actually with their subsidiary, Sustainable Neighborhoods. We would contribute $1.3 million in AG settlement funds in order to launch this pilot program, which we anticipate will help it will help pay for the refinance of 13 mortgages for borrowers who are delinquent and unable to get a workout with their current lender, and who are experiencing a hardship. We would get them a refinance mortgage at an affordable payment, and hold the loan until it is seasoned and reperforming. The purpose of launching this pilot program is really to be able to demonstrate that this is another good way to run a community restoration fund program, where we can actually work with legal service providers to select borrowers who are sort of caught up in this long foreclosure process, but really would like to do the right thing and could afford their mortgage if they were just sort of given the opportunity. As a reminder, what we've been doing in the Sonny Mae CRF program today is purchasing pools of delinquent mortgages, where we can't necessarily select which borrowers participate. It's kind of like a lottery. Whoever gets it, gets it. So this way we can actually work with legal service providers, find those borrowers who are really trying to stay in their home.
And you'll be able to, this will allow you to do 13?
Just 13. We're hoping that it'll demonstrate to be a success, and then we can sort of create a larger pool of funds. We have additional attorney general settlement funds, and we could raise some senior debt and do it on a much larger scale. This is our way of sort of dipping our toes in the water.
Interesting. Questions?
Just, I noticed the interest rate is 5 3/4.
Yeah.
Is that a function of our cost of money to us? Or?
Yeah,
Is this-
so it's a function of the cost, but it's also in anticipation of not being able for Sonny Mae to buy these mortgages for at least 24 consecutive months of on-time mortgage payments, and we are not sure where interest rates will be at the time. It'll be much easier to refinance a borrower down from their current interest rate than to have an increase. So it's sort of in anticipation of 2 years from now, but it's also to cover the costs.
Thank you.
So how do you arrive at the 5.24 number?
The Center for New York City Neighborhoods is the CDFI participating with us in this program. They did the calculation based on the costs of the debt that they have, the debt that they're taking on to launch this pilot program, as well as their services to originate each mortgage and to service it.
Do you have any idea what the average current mortgage rate was for these homes?
We haven't selected the borrowers yet. We're about, if we get approval today, then we will reach out to the legal service providers and have them put forward good cases. We imagine there'll be a variety of interest rates that they currently have. They will all be delinquent and trying to get current with their lender, but unable to get a workout.
I'm just curious about how much of a saving this will be for the homeowner.
Yeah. Well, we're averaging between $25,000 to $50,000 in subsidy as a deferred second, so we can bring down their principal that way. It's possible that this interest rate will be higher than what they currently have, but if they perform, then we can encourage them to refinance out into a more favorable interest rate.
I guess at the end of the day, it's a question of whether the payment's affordable, however it's arrived at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It is not great in the long term to have a higher interest rate than the market, but that's right. If we can get them to the affordable monthly payment, we think they could be successful.
Rachel, sort of big picture question. You've got, obviously you and your partner through this MOU providing this assistance to the homeowner who's distressed. Does the lender have skin in the game? Because we're also, in effect, helping the lenders, right?
So what we're going to ask from the legal service providers is that they only put forward cases where they're able to negotiate a payoff letter with the lender that doesn't have a bunch of legal fees tacked on, where they forgive some of the arrearage. So we are going to be paying full price for these mortgages, yet we're hoping that we'll be able, through this sort of pro bono legal attorney, be able to bring down some of those extra costs. But it does make the lender whole in that sense.
Right. I mean, so if I'm just to pick on someone who has no CEO, Wells Fargo, you guys are doing me a big favor. In other words, so you better ask me to, or it's up to you, but you would think that we would want.
We are helping the homeowner. Who is stuck with
I know that's our mission.
Who is stuck with the lender and in a situation where they want to be in a performing loan and they are not able to get because they can't get concessions or a structure that works for them. So we feel if we come in both with a partner, legal services, and some dollars, our goal is to get the neediest sort of cases who want to be there kind of off the books and into a performing loan that might be a little higher, but that they can refinance, and we're sort of hedging future interest rates. But it isn't a bank. We're not doing this via the banks. And
no, but maybe a control for what I'm getting at is something you said, Rachel, is really key. That it's not a random selection process for the participating loans, right? You guys will work with the community partners to identify people who meet certain conditions, and on the far side, who have lenders who are willing to forego, who are okay if they get 85 cents or 90 cents or whatever. One would hope, right? You can select.
Absolutely.
You can
Yes.
use discretion.
Yes. That's
Great,
right.
great. Anybody else? Interesting.
I'm not familiar with the Center for New York City Neighborhoods and the subsidiary. I just want to know who's providing their funding, or the funding for the year.
We are.
Sure. So, so the Center for New York City Neighborhoods is a nonprofit organization based in New York City that works statewide. The Sustainable Neighborhoods is their CDFI subsidiary. They ran the Mortgage Assistance Program, MAP, that was, I believe, $80 million in Attorney General settlement funds, and they worked with borrowers to create deferred seconds, to give them mods. They have a very successful, that program has been extremely successful, and they've sort of proved that they have a lot of knowledge in this space. They have good relationships with the legal service providers in their well-functioning CDFI that we feel comfortable partnering with.
They are I just had two things. That one is, I think they are the child of, I don't know if you know Herb Sturz.
Sure.
So they are Center for New York City Neighborhoods is the child of Herb Sturz and HPD.
Like many programs.
Yes, and was created and came out of the foreclosure crisis specifically to address single-family foreclosure, which the city didn't really have kind of a single-family an entity to sort of deal with this crisis. So that's what it sort of is at the high level.
So where does the money for the financing come from?
Sure. For this pilot program, we would be contributing $1.3 million. The Center for New York City Neighborhoods has $550,000 in repaid MAP loans that they are getting approval from the Attorney General's office to contribute as equity to this. And then they have secured a $1 million loan from BNB Bank at a 3.4% interest rate. So it's favorable terms. Yeah.
And what do we charge for our money? I assume we're charging some kind of interest rate.
We had not anticipated charging an interest rate, but we do anticipate having the money cycle back and for us to be able to help more borrowers with the subsidy.
So
We're using settlement dollars. We're using dollars that we got from an Attorney General settlement to use for this purpose. So we aren't using bond proceeds.
our
We're
money.
using.
So in effect, there's no cost to us in a sense.
Right. This is sort of a regulatory request that we're changing the guidelines for the program, which SONYMA board approves the Community Restoration Fund, sort of what it can and can't do. And so this is sort of a modification of what we're not just buying a pool of notes. We're sort of doing this more strategic effort.
So the Center for New York City is putting in money at 3.45, and we're putting it in at 0. And I'm just wondering why we can't do a lower rate for the borrowers.
You want to come up?
Hi, everybody. So there's two things. Rachel already mentioned one, which is in order to get these loans out of this temporary state at the back end, we're going to need either SONYMA or some other lender to refinance them. And not knowing where rates will be exactly 24 months from now, if we are at 3 and rates 24 months from now are at 6, right, there will be a difficulty getting the borrowers to adequately refinance. But the second issue is all of the costs of running this 13 loan pilot are being absorbed by the center. And so their costs plus their borrowing costs are what get us to that number. So we are not charging any more than we need to pay back their debt and to cover their lending costs.
But we are charging more than we might have in the anticipation that we don't know where rates will be in 24 months.
Not more than we needed to in terms of covering those costs. So like we could have charged 6, right? There's nothing prohibiting us in DFS rules or CFPB rules in order to make sure, right, that we could then refinance them on the back end. But we actually targeted the number to our costs, which is just the combination of the center's debt and the center's time and operations.
Would it be possible to see, I'm not opposing the project, but because I think it's an excellent concept, but I'm just really curious about how the financing works. And would it be possible to see?
Sure, we have tons of budgets for you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, great.
Thanks, Joyce. Rachel, thank you.
Thank
All right.
you very much.
Very good.
Alex?
Okay, now before the SONYMA board is a resolution of the SONYMA approving guidelines for the Community Restoration Fund's Distressed Borrowers Refinance Program. Assuming the first and second is previously entered for the board, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 The motion is carried, the resolution adopted.
Great. 14 is the resolution of the State of New York Mortgage Agency authorizing the transfer of certain MIF reserves. Mike's going to come back to the podium.
The 2019-2020 enacted budget authorized the MIF to transfer $17,018,000 to the Housing Trust Fund Corporation and MBBA for municipal relief for the city of Albany. $12,018,000 has already been transferred to the Housing Trust Fund Corporation, with the remaining $5 million to MBBA. The total excess balance as of March 31 was $16,199,765. So the variance between the $17,018,000 and the $16,199,765 is $818,235. And we need the approval of directors to transfer that from the project insurance account.
All right. Questions? If not, Alex?
Now before the SONYMA board for approval is a resolution of the State of New York Mortgage Agency approving the transfer of certain MIF reserves. Assuming the first and second is previously entered for the SONYMA board, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carried, the resolution adopted.
Great. We're now going to move to items on our agenda that are to be considered for mortgage insurance by the State of New York Mortgage Agency Mortgage Insurance Committee and for financing by the HFA board as well. Starting with 15A, which is the resolution of the Mortgage Insurance Committee of the State of New York Mortgage Agency approving 100% mortgage insurance on an HFA first mortgage loan in the amount of $4,398,000 for Jill Joseph Tower. Andy, finally, we're going up to Erie County in Buffalo. Mike.
So this is an HFA PLP project. In addition to the $4.4 million CPC first mortgage, there will be a $7.4 million HFA second mortgage. The insured loan amount is $34,600 per unit, which equals 34% of the project's total development cost of $102,000 per unit. The project would break even with a 12% pro forma vacancy or a 12% increase in pro forma operating expenses.
Mm-hmm. All of that for $140 a square foot. It's good to be in Buffalo. I mean, we said this before, but when you compare these things, it's amazing. From the Bronx to Buffalo. Questions for Mike on this? If not, Alex, do we do several?
Yeah, I think Rebecca now will present the HFA side of things.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. This is so good. This is the way we toggle back and forth, but we get it done.
The Manley method.
Yeah, the Manley. Where's Linda? Thank you, Linda, for setting this up. This is much more efficient.
Manley is in Linda Manley.
Yes. Oh, that's right.
The Linda method. Fine. It's really good. It's really more efficient. Rebecca, you going to do the other half here?
I'm ready. Good morning. Morning.
I'm here to present a request for your approval for the adoption of a resolution authorizing the issuance of an amount not to exceed $7,352,000 in HCR subsidy funds. This project is located at 66 Custer Street in Buffalo. There's public transportation accessible from the project site. The project is Jill Joseph Apartments. It is the acquisition and rehabilitation of 127 units of affordable senior housing. With HFA's investment, there will be a new 40-year regulatory agreement put in place that will safeguard the project's residents and the affordability. The project was originally financed with DHCR 9% tax credits and is about 25 years into its regulatory period. The project will be a tenant-in-place renovation that will replace the kitchen, bath, boilers, and other energy efficiency measures will be put into place for the long-term viability of this project. The 127 units are available for seniors 55 and older. All of the units are set aside for households at 60% of AMI and below. The project will include a community facility space. It has parking spaces available to residents and their visitors. And there's 122 one-bedroom and 5 two-bedroom apartments. The developer here is currently the management company, so it's Clover Management Company, and they will be the developer owner and then will manage this property following the acquisition. Clover, this is their only affordable property, but they own and manage over 6,500 apartments across Connecticut, upstate New York, Massachusetts, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. And DHCR Asset Management has confirmed there are no issues with this project or this management company.
Thank you.
Now, in the board materials, we have $7,352,441 for the subsidy loan. Is that right, or are we?
That is what I have. I'm sorry, I didn't read the 441.
Okay. So the board materials, we just corrected the resolution for the SONYMA committee just for the address. We had 36 Custer Street at 66 Custer Street, so that's included in the materials before. What's that?
It moved.
It moved, Mike.
It's a very extensive
You
renovation.
made Buffalo.
Subsurface weakness.
Right. So if there are no, so we're going to go for the votes. Now before the Mortgage Insurance Committee for approval is a resolution of the committee approving mortgage insurance and a commitment for the provision thereof for Jill Joseph Apartments in Buffalo, Erie County. Assuming the first and seconds previously entered for the committee, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carried, the resolution adopted. Now before the HFA members are resolutions to be adopted that were transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the HFA members, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motions are carried, the resolution adopted.
All right, we're now going to move to the items on our agenda that are to be considered for mortgage insurance by the State of New York Mortgage Agency Mortgage Insurance Committee, the SONYMA Board, and for financing by the HFA Finance and Program Committee and the HFA Full Board. So we're going with 16A, a resolution of the Mortgage Insurance Committee and of the State of New York Mortgage Agency recommending and approving 100% mortgage insurance on an HFA first mortgage loan in the amount of $15,100,000 for School Street Apartments in Yonkers. So we do the same thing?
Yep.
Mike first and then Rebecca. Great.
This project comprises the development of 80 low-income units, of which 48 will be supportive housing units for clients of the New York State Office of Mental Health. And OMH will pay 100% of the debt service on this project for the full term of the loan. The insured loan amount is $189,000 per unit, which equals 31% of the project's total development cost of $614,000 per unit.
Thank you. Rebecca?
I am here to present a request for your approval for the adoption of a resolution authorizing the issuance of an amount not to exceed $26,345,000 in tax-exempt bonds and $6,762,360 in HCR subsidy, and additionally $3,900,000 in federal housing trust fund subsidy. This project is located at 10 School Street in Yonkers, near downtown Yonkers, Getty Square. The project is located a half mile from the Yonkers Metro North Station and within proximity to several local bus routes. The project has 48 of the 60 units are supportive housing units, and there will be set aside for homeless individuals with a diagnosis of serious mental illness. And the support services will be provided by St. Joseph's Hospital, which is this project is a joint venture between St. Joseph's Hospital and Concern for Independent Living. The project is both supportive and low-income housing. There are 80 units that are set aside for households at or below 60% of the area median income. As my colleague mentioned, OMH is providing a debt service payments for the term of the mortgage at $15.1 million. And the project will serve a range of incomes from 30% of AMI up to 60% of AMI. The project includes the demolition of 4 vacant buildings and the new construction of a 7-story building with cast-in-place concrete. There are 50 studios, 10 one-bedroom, and 22 bedroom units available here. The amenities include a community room, exercise room, library, and laundry facilities, as well as on-site supportive services that are provided by St. Joseph's Hospital. So the project is a joint venture between St. Joseph's, which is a not-for-profit healthcare organization, and Concern for Independent Living, which is a not-for-profit housing and mental health services organization. St. Joseph's Department of Residential Services currently owns and operates 2 low-income housing tax credit projects that were financed through HPD. One is in Queens, one is in Brooklyn. Concern for Independent Living owns and operates a multitude of properties mostly in New York City. Most recently, HFA has financed 5 tax-exempt LIHTC properties with financing, including Concern McDougal, Norwood Terrace, Renaissance Village, Surf Vets Place, and Estella Housing. There are several government partners in this deal. So OMH is providing both the permanent mortgage payments here, as well as providing subsidy for the services. And HHAP is additionally contributing money to about $2.75 million towards this project.
Terrific project, and amazing you got it cited and approved, and I mean, not the kind of thing that neighborhoods tend to like.
Well, we'll credit the development team with that, but yeah, it's been quite the journey. It's been in pre-development for several years.
I can imagine.
Rebecca, it's a really, to both of you, it's a very exciting project, really important, obviously. It's news to me, the $15 million from OMH, what is that coming from? I mean, I didn't know they could do that.
It's like a legacy program. Right, this is the OMH reported debt. They had gotten some funds, I'm not sure at what time, where they were able to use it as debt support, but these projects that are coming through are sort of the last of those. I'm not sure what the source of the...
Yeah, and I just wonder, over at OMH, like, how did they pick this particular project to make such a big commitment to?
I think they
I don't
have
have to answer
trouble
that.
citing,
Yeah.
I think, quite honestly, I think they have trouble citing supportive housing, and
Right.
so kind of developers come to them and say, hey, we're able to...
We have a
bring
site,
these
we have a
units
project, we have
to
an
this
operator with a
community.
great track record.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's just, we see different, you talk about OPM, other people's money, right? Like, we can't own everything with all of our resources, but to see another agency with that kind of capacity is very encouraging, right? Congratulations. Alex?
All right, now before the committee and the board on SONYMA is approval resolutions of the committee and of the board recommending and approving mortgage insurance and a commitment for the provision thereof for School Street apartments in Yonkers, Westchester County. Assuming the first and second is previously entered for the committee and the board, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. The resolution adopted. Now before the HFA Financing Program Committee and the HFA members are resolutions to be adopted that were transmitted in connection with the item. Assuming the first and second is previously entered for the committee and the members, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motions are carried. The resolution adopted.
Great. Thank you. The next 2 items are information items. Item 17, activity report for the Mortgage Insurance Committee for the period from May 1st, 2019 through May 31st, 2019. Wow, that's a very timely report. I mean, this is a couple weeks ago, Mike.
The mortgage recording tax for May was $14.8 million this year, as compared with $12.9 million last year and $11.4 million the preceding year. So whereas last year the mortgage recording tax was moderately greater than the preceding year, it looks like this year it may be greater than last year. So we seem to be on a modest upward trend. It's good.
Which
Yeah,
has to
that's
end
that.
sometime.
There was a particular apartment sold on Central Park south that I'm thinking of that probably shows a blip. That hasn't been recorded. Has that been recorded yet? Oh, well. Mike, that's good news. Thank you. I'm turning my head because this appears on our screens vertically, and you have to...
You can just click view
Oh,
and
you can do
rotate.
that? Thank you, Alex. I like looking sideways and getting a kink in my neck. All right, 18. Review the Sunny May quarterly report on the financial status of existing hedges or swaps as of April 30th. Is James here? No, James, who's doing this?
James will be presenting later. This
Oh,
is
okay.
just an
I mean, I think he came in and he hid behind the column. So there he is. He's hiding behind the column. All right. Do we have a report, a presentation on the swaps?
No, that's included just in the book.
All right, good. Any questions on these items from directors? If not, we're going to move ahead to the item on our agenda that's been considered for financing by the HFA Program, Finance and Program Committee, and also the HFA Board. Item 19, resolutions for the New York State Housing Finance Agency Finance and Program Committee and the New York State Housing Finance Agency recommending approval and authorizing the issuance of an amount not to exceed $160 million. I'll say that again, $160 million of tax-exempt and or taxable bonds for 14 LeCount Place apartments, City of New Rochelle. Again, we're still in Westchester County.
Miles is going to do
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Miles.
So 14 LeCount Place apartments will use the agency's investment to fund the new construction of 380 units in one mixed income and mixed use building in the City of New Rochelle, Westchester County. The site is between Main Street and Anderson Place and very close to several supermarkets, convenience stores, pharmacies, and banks. It is within walking distance to Monroe College, the New Rochelle Public Library, and the Metro North and Amtrak station. The project achieves agency's goals to address specific local housing needs and promote economic integration. The total of the total amount of units, there will be 95 affordable units. This is basically a 75-25, an 80-20 that you see often in the city. This is 75% market rate, 25% affordable. Those 25% affordable units are the 95. The balance of them are going to be market rate. Of the affordable units, you have 47 units that are going to be set aside for households earning at or below 70% of AMI, and we have 48 units that are going to be affordable to households earning at or below 50% of AMI. The balance 284 are going to be market rate. The project includes the new construction of approximately 5,000 square feet of retail space on the ground floor and 86,000 square feet of structured parking. The building will be 27 stories. It's a mixed-use rental, totaling 460,000 gross square feet, 270,000 rentable square feet of residential space, and then the parking will be below ground and 1 story above ground as well as some off-site parking. Amenities will be available to all residents regardless of income and are expected to include multiple fitness centers, a dog walk, dog washing stations, a community workroom, bike storage.
Wait, did you just say dog washing stations?
That is correct.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
It'll be dog
I didn't catch that in the board
It's
packet.
Yonkers.
Yes.
You know.
I think you also said critical facilities.
Yes,
Okay,
critical
good.
facilities, plenty of amenities, a full suite of amenities for all residents, fully accessible to all residents regardless of income. The amenities, certain amenities will be charged to market rate households. No amenities will be charged to affordable households. The developer is a joint venture between L&M and Wilder Balter, which have extensive agency experience. Most recently, L&M closed Macy, Schlobaum, Walsh, and Flynn with HFA in 2018, and Wilder Balter is completing Chappaqua Commons, an HFA finance project in 2016. L&M will serve as general contractor, and Wilder Balter will serve as the property manager. Citibank will be the LIHTC equity investor. Goldman Sachs will syndicate the brownfield tax credits. The mortgage credit enhancer during construction will be Citibank, and the permanent lender is Freddie Mac.
It's interesting to note that the rents here, that the affordable rents are about half of the market rate, which, depending on how you think of New Rochelle, is sort of interesting, right? The studios are about $1,000, and the market is about $2,000. And the 2 bedrooms are average like $1,500, and the market is $3,000 for a 2-bedroom. And it's a luxury building, but I thought that was sort of interesting. And the split is nice that these are significantly affordable. The market is strong.
But it just begs the question. It is kind of like an 80-20.
It is.
It is.
And I thought we were getting out of that business.
So we do not do any New York City 80/20s. This is they are required to do 10%, and they came in the stat.
25%. So we're doing more than municipalities' local requirements for affordable housing.
Right.
It's a priority for the city.
And we are
Keep
not
going.
using. So
Sell me.
And
Sell
we're
me.
only using our resources on the low-income units. We're not using them on the market. We're not using bonds on the market rate units
new issue.
Are we
tax
issue
exempt.
We're
new
doing
taxables for them?
and recycled.
Recyclables. Yep.
So we're using volume cap only for the affordable units.
Correct.
Yep.
So there
Our
were
limited resources are only financing the 25% of.
I don't want taxpayer monies going to the doggy washing station, if you don't mind.
We'll make sure to carve that
I don't
out.
think we
Carve that
object to
out.
that, by the way.
Excuse me, don't you think that's necessary?
No,
service?
the taxpayer shouldn't be paying for that nonsense. No.
And so when the memo says a new allocation of state activity cap, what does that mean?
That's volume cap, tax exempt bonds.
But it's not some separate pool than we normally use.
No.
We're just distinguishing it from the recycled.
I see.
Exactly. That's
New versus recycled.
Right, and again, it's like sell me, because we don't have a lot of that, right?
correct. Yes.
Okay.
And what got the developer to 25%?
Negotiation, they came in at 20%. Yeah.
Not wrong.
Miles.
They came in at 20, and we pushed them up to 25.
No, Miles
right.
and Nicole and the team made them do that.
Yeah.
Nice work.
Good work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, because obviously we know the entity. Next time, ask for more.
Yeah.
Good job. Questions and comments for Miles? All right, Miles. Thank you. Good presentation. Thank you, Alex.
All right, now before the HFA Finance and Program Committee and the HFA members are resolutions that to be adopted or were transmitted in connection with the item, assuming the first and second previously entered for the committee and the members. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motions are carried. The resolution adopted.
Great. 20, resolutions of the New York State Housing Finance Agency, Finance and Program Committee, and the New York State Housing Finance Agency itself, recommending approval and authorizing the issuance of an amount not to exceed $178 million of unrated, privately placed bonds for 210 Livingston Street in downtown Brooklyn.
This will be James.
Oh, James, there he is, out from behind the column.
Yeah,
exciting.
actually, just when we a couple months ago we had approved the COB, the volume cap COB for preservation for recycling. So part of it's going into this, and the other is going into NYCHA.
Slow down.
Convertible
COB
option
is?
bond.
Okay.
So that's a resource that we're now preserving volume cap. We're putting it into NYCHA and sort of being able to facilitate. So you're starting to see the rollout of the stuff that we're doing.
So you remember when people pay down our tax exempt bonds, we can't just we don't have a bank account. We put them in. We used to have a facility.
Yeah,
It
and
was
that's
kind of
more
expensive, so we went to this other option, which is the convertible option bonds, which just allows us to keep bond repayments. It's kind of like the AHC sort of structure. We can keep payments and we can reuse them, but we need something to put them in,
Yeah. So that's
which is great.
So before you, we asked for approval on 210 Livingston, which is a refinancing of a deal that was done in October of 2015. It's located in 210 Livingston in downtown Brooklyn, obviously in Brooklyn, Kings County. The borrowing entity is a joint venture between Rose Associates and Benenson Capital Partners. The project's a 25-story building with 368 units. 74 units are affordable, at or below 60% of AMI. When the deal was originally done in 2015, $158 million of bonds were placed privately to J.P. Morgan and Sun Trust. They're coming back to us now to refinance with Wells Fargo. The project is completed. It was completed in 2018. It currently has 93.7% leased and occupied. However, there are still, of the 74 units that are affordable, there's still 22 units that are to be leased up. They believe that will be done by the end of July. And I'm happy to provide more detail on sort of the status of the outstanding apartments as well. The first request is for the agency to amend and restate the existing bond resolutions to incorporate the terms and provisions allowing for Wells Fargo to purchase those with a term of 15 years. The second request is for the agency to issue an additional $20 million of taxable bonds to pay for refinancing costs and reimburse the developer. I think there was over $65 million of original developer equity went in. So even after issuing the $20 million of bonds, there'll still be north of 10% of developer equity in the deal, which is sort of the agency's threshold.
If it was 2002, so this would be one of the kind of last 80/20s, 2015? Or
I'm not sure if we have any others that are converting. We might have one. Yeah, we do. We have a couple that are still in construction that have not converted.
Right.
They're big. They take a while.
yeah.
Okay. All right, so,
Do we have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. It's more of a theoretical question, actually, because this is a completed project. But comparing this one to the previous one that we just looked at, which had a considerable amount of state energy, can't think of the word.
Energy efficiency?
Thank you. Energy efficiency in it, and using state resources for that purpose. And it seems to be absent in this project. And I'm just wondering what we do as an agency to encourage the use of those kinds of resources, especially given the role that buildings play in emissions in New York City.
I would say two things, but you can add, or I'll say one thing and you can add whatever else. As you may remember, we began an initiative around climate bonds, where we're having our bonds climate certified, and that set a series of standards around energy efficiency that now people have to comply. This would have closed prior to us rolling out the climate bonds, so you see a lot more of that now, partially because of that.
And in fact, the LeCount deal does have energy efficiency components to it. But with regard to sort of how we treat the bond program as it relates to this, actually this last sale, the H&I deal that we just did last week, was actually kind of like record-setting for the U.S. municipal market. We were the first. Well, we were going to come back and report on this in July, but basically we were the first U.S. issuer in the United States to show pricing differential for green bonds. So it's like a huge thing in like the green infrastructure space, because basically we were able to attract more buyers in as a result of the type of projects that we're funding. But I think that with regard to the green standards, we have sort of different layers and sort of levels. And I think what's interesting is we actually have for the green programs like new construction versus preservation. Obviously those present, and sort of I think what we're, a lot of the things actually too, we use the Energy Star multifamily high-rise program, which, obviously comes out of the EPA. So it's kind of very interesting time, because I think that they're evolving those standards as well, hopefully in a world positive manner. But like that's kind of what we use at this point. In addition, but like for example, the Series I deal that we did was it was a passive house. It was the Retrofit New York program. So we're seeing much more like significant. That was an 86% reduction in carbon emissions for that building as part of the rehab. So we're seeing very significant, I think, work being done by the agency as it regards pushing forward the green agenda and sort of really making sure that our buildings are meeting.
Good question, Joyce. Thank you.
And James will talk more about this in July, but I think not only are we doing it more, but we also are finding better ways to communicate that through our bond sales and stuff like that, which is great and not something we've.
Well, that there's a market for the bonds. That's getting good pricing. That's a good story.
It's the idea that, and this is I was on a panel yesterday about, but the idea that, there's a long-term credit issue to thinking about what we finance, and whether we know that climate change and all of these other things, they're inexorably linked to our credit, whether the rating agencies or other people acknowledge it. So I think the narrative of how we sort of structure and do our bonds and how we function as an agency is really about creating a credit positive position so that we'll have market access in the future. And I think that that's what it's about with regard to making sure our portfolio is, it's part of the work that they're doing, the development team is doing, and bringing these projects in and making sure that they do have those standards.
James, quick question, just back to Livingston Street. They're one of the last, it feels like, in a way, kind of participants in 421A, right? And what happens, Ruth Ann or James or somebody, to the tenants that are in this building on, regulated rents, not the market tenants, when the tax incentive, something as significant as 420A rolls off and the thing is fully taxed? What's the tax implication for someone, in an affordable apartment at that time?
Two things. One, there is still 421A because it's now called Affordable New York, which was the 2016 revised law. So we still so
How
projects
am I
are
supposed to
still-
remember that?
I know.
Okay.
So projects are still availing themselves of the 421A tax abatement, and it was made more broader around the city,
right.
and it still is alive and well.
Thank you.
I would say they don't have bond financing them anymore, but they still have a 421A reg agreement, so we don't see them anymore. The statute says, and Linda is probably loves it when I say things that begin with the statute says.
She
But the
just
statute
sat up.
says
She just had her coffee and sat up in her chair.
an affordable.
We've
under
looked at it a
421A
lot lately.
Yes, if you are in an affordable apartment that is subject to a 421A regulatory agreement, when that 421A benefit regulatory term, so not the benefit term, but the regulatory term ends, because sometimes those are different, and they are now, that tenant has to have in their lease, in I believe it's 12-point font, that says that your unit is affordable by virtue of this 421A, and at your lease renewal following the end of the 421A regulatory agreement, this apartment is no longer affordable, and you will go to market. Linda, is that accurate?
One friendly amendment, the under 421A 16, which is the operative provision, the unit stays subject to rent regulation through the life of the tenant in place when 421A burns off. So when there's a burn off of 421A, it won't immediately jump to market. It's upon the next vacancy.
For anything that took 421A 16, which is affordable New York, and then for some of our things, which are the older,
Right.
the ones that we got,
The older ones are slightly
20s,
different.
would be what I said.
But-
What Linda said is anything that's done now.
So, but is that when the owner gets to the end of his or her 421A tax benefit, Linda, the tenant still has the protections in the lease of right. There's still a rent regulated apartment. But what happens when the owner says, "Well, now I want to impose a tax increase"?
I'm sorry. So Ken, there are different 421A topics, sections, and each one the burn off works slightly differently. If at the end of, depending on which section it is, if at the end of 421A and at the end of the regulatory agreement, the affordable unit is no longer rent regulated, the landlord has the option to take it to market.
Right. Okay. Good. Thank you, Linda. Thank you. Any other questions on Livingston Street? We got to take care of Livingston Street. Alex.
Right, now before the HFA Finance and Program Committee and the HFA members are resolutions that were transmitted in connection with 210 Livingston Street. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the committee and the members, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motions are carried, the resolution adopted.
Thanks, James.
All right.
Thanks.
Now we're going to do a final HFA item, which is a resolution authorizing the making of a small building program subsidy loan in the amount of $400,000 for the 78 Morningside Street project, which is in Brooklyn.
Yonkers.
Miles is back.
Oh, Yonkers?
Well, it's in Yonkers. I never heard of Morningside Street in Brooklyn, so I was
just
going to
moved.
say something, but Miles, thank you for the correction.
No problem. So I have a second project here for you folks. Polar opposite side of the spectrum from 14 LeCount Place. This is 17 Morningside Avenue, which will use the agency's investment to fund the rehabilitation of an existing residential building in Yonkers that comprises 8 two-bedroom units. The 8 units are expected to be set aside for households who earn no more than 120% of area median income, with an average AMI of all households to be no more than 80% of AMI. The project is proposed to be funded under the agency's new Small Building Participation Loan Program, a program which assists financing the rehabilitation of vacant multifamily buildings between 5 and 40 units outside of New York City. This investment will be coupled with a conventional construction and perm loan from Community Preservation Corporation, and along with equity from the borrower. The project is located on the eastern side of Morningside Avenue in a predominantly residential area that's less than 1 mile southeast of the Glenwood Metro North train station, close to Gorton High School, a food town, the Sawmill Parkway, and Dunn Park. Downtown Yonkers and the Hudson waterfront are approximately 1 mile away. The scope of work proposed for the project will include a complete gut rehab of the interior and replacement of all major systems, including portions of the roof. The borrower and developer is 7880 Morningside LLC, which is a joint venture among three partners, Luigi La Verigetta, Jack Body, and Anthony Pilley. Mr. Verigata is a certified public accountant and owns and operates an independent accounting firm in Westchester. Mr. Body owns a general contracting real estate management business and has been active in rehabilitating multifamily properties in Yonkers for many years. Mr. Pilley is an MBA in financial management and is the first vice president of cash management at Orange Bank. He's been in banking for 15 years. This partnership is going to develop and own and operate the property. The general contractor will be an affiliate of Jack Body, who's a partner, right? And the property management will be done through an affiliate of Luigi Verigata.
All right. Works. Is that okay?
I will thank the staff because I acknowledge it takes as much work to do
Yes.
an 8-unit project as it does to do an 800-unit project. And I know everyone doesn't love these, but they are very important. And so I thank you for that.
I have a question about the underwriting. Obviously, this is really a wonderful energy efficiency green building project with really a usage of a wide range of programs. But those programs and whatever they're contributing are not reflected in the sources and uses of funds, and I'm just wondering why that is.
Meaning they're not accessing green financing sources, or
Well, I assume that they are, given given the programs that they're using here.
so they're just meeting the HFA green standards, which are pretty robust, but
Right.
they're not but meeting those standards doesn't provide additional access to any HFA subsidy sources besides the small building loan program.
But what about things like the NYSERDA money or the EPA?
I don't believe this project's
Do they
meeting
provide
any.
any funding?
No, NYSERDA's not providing funding, and I don't believe they're meeting any NYSERDA requirements. They are doing a pretty robust scope of work that's going to lead to, a more energy efficient building, and that's reflected in them meeting the HFA green standards, which is a scope of work that's reviewed by our team, and that was approved. But that's the only standard. The energy efficiency standard section, the standard and feature section on page 2 will show you the boxes checked just for the HFA green standards.
Okay, I see. That wasn't clear to me. Thank you.
But below that, you'll see all the features, which are
Yeah.
pretty robust. Yep.
Great.
You can't do it all in a small project, Joyce.
Yeah, no. I was wondering why they had so many different
Small project,
sources.
all right? They're going to have a reflective roof surface or something like that. And they're getting new windows. Miles made that clear. So it becomes energy efficient by virtue of replacing all the heating, if you look at the picture, right now it's a picture of an inefficient old building from the 1920s or something like that. So it'll be virtually new. Miles, thank you. Questions, comments from directors? If not, Alex, let's do it.
Now before the HFA Board is a resolution of HFA authorizing the making of a subsidy loan for the project known as 78 Morningside Street in Yonkers, assuming the first and second previously entered for the HFA Board. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. The resolution adopted. The other items are not going to be presentations. We're going to item 22 now.
We're not doing 20, okay.
Yeah, we just go to 20. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Keep going.
20?
Next page.
Jumping ahead.
I just got ahead. So we're not going to have a presentation.
22?
Yep.
I've been instructed by Linda here next to me to go to number 22, a resolution approving AHC's March 31st, 2019 audited financial statements. Sheila's going to come up.
No, I think we did this at the audit committee. So
But we've
just
done this
gonna
already.
vote. Yep.
Sorry. Thank you.
So now,
Alex.
We're spending the money as it comes in,
Really? Good.
Very good.
if not sooner.
And not more than what comes in.
Exactly. Well, yes, but we have the resources.
Now before the AHC Board is a resolution of AHC reviewing and approving the audited financial statements that were presented at the audit committee meeting for the fiscal year 2018-2019, assuming the first and seconds previously entered for AHC. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motions are carried. The resolution adopted.
The next two items are consent items. 23, approval of public authorities Information System, Paris, annual reporting filing for AHC. Again, we did this earlier. Alex?
Yes, and here we provided the board members with the final attachment to the Paris filing concerning the salary information. That's on your laptops. So now before the AHC board is a resolution of AHC accepting a filing under the Public Authorities Reporting Information System. Assuming the first and second is previously entered for the AHC board, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. The resolution adopted.
Great. 24, a resolution authorizing an award of grant funds for certain projects located inside and outside the City of New York.
This is the AHC program that we just talked about. So now before the AHC board is a resolution of AHC authorizing awards included in the board book of grant funds for certain projects located inside and outside of the City of New York. Assuming the first and second is previously entered for AHC, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
You know, Alex's reference to the inside-outside reminds me that we always say there is no unfinished business. That funny double negative, right, Alex? Someday we're going to say we're done. And we say we're done. No, there's no unfinished business. Because that's what, Alex wants us to do. We're going to move. He also wants us to take steps now to go into executive session. This, my friends, will be brief. But, Alex, please.
I'm going to ask for a motion, a second, to go into executive session pursuant to Section 105F of the Open Meetings Law to discuss the financial, credit, or employment history of a particular corporation, assuming the first and seconds previously entered for all the agencies. Those in favor of going into executive session, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
We're back from executive session. No votes were taken in executive session. Let me ask for a motion in a second to reconvene the public session for the various meetings.
Second.
Okay, no votes were taken, and now we're going to go back to item, Chairman?
Yes, thank you, Alex. Thank you for taking us in and out of executive session appropriately. We're going to go back to our agenda item number 2, which is, it's at the end. Item number 2, which is a resolution authorizing an amendment to the contract with ProLink Solutions. Betsy, please present this.
Good morning or afternoon, wherever we are right now.
Morning,
I think we're
briefly.
still morning, hopefully. I'm here to present a request for authorization to amend the agency's contract with ProLink and increase our authority to spend almost $54,000 more on that contract, and therefore make the contract with HFA a cumulative total not to exceed $770,017. As we've discussed in the past, ProLink is a critical part of executing our transformational BAM project. We continue to make progress on that project with ProLink. We have tested the AHC module, a highly customized portion, and have had positive results. And the next big milestone is delivery of substantial additional functionality next week on 6/24, my 13th anniversary.
The agency?
No, with the project.
Personal anniversary.
With BAM.
With BAM, yeah. Although my husband might tell you that it's all,
you were
all
married
one and
to
the same.
It hasn't felt like 13 years from his end of it. Right?
And so as such, I'm asking for authority to amend the contract to a cumulative total of not to exceed $770,017.
Okay, so now before the HFA, SONYMA, AHC, MBBA, and tobacco boards is an amendment to the Hosted Technology Services Agreement with ProLink Solutions, Inc. Assuming the first and seconds previously entered for all the agencies, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried.
I'm in the negative, Alex. Alex, I'm voting in the negative on that resolution.
Okay.
Thanks, Andy.
Noted.
Everyone else? Okay, done. There being no further items for any of the boards or committees this morning, Alex can now ask for motions and second to adjourn today's meetings.
So assuming the first and seconds previously entered for all the boards and committees, all those in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Our next board meeting is scheduled for Thursday, July 11th at 9 a.m.
Mark your calendars, July 11th. In the meantime, bye, everybody. Thank you very much.